Hello there, and today's first two pages come from Robert Goddard's Painting the Darkness. This is a book I read a long time ago. My wife is a big fan of Robert Goddard and has read an awful lot of his stuff. And the books themselves are good. He's a very, very good writer. I just didn't like this one because the ending. And I won't spoil the ending for you. Perhaps we should call this the last two pages. That would make a very different kind of video, wouldn't it? Just because I just felt it's difficult without spoiling it, but I just felt that the protagonist had been hard done by it. I just didn't like the way it was resolved. There was something that didn't sit right with me. Didn't mean to say it wasn't compelling and good read. It's just, and it had put me off reading any of his other stuff. But so my wife has read an awful lot of it and thoroughly enjoys it. So Robert Goddard, Painting the Darkness, first two pages. It was 10 years since William Trenchard had first met Constance Summer and helped her begin to forget the tragedy of her fiancé's suicide. Absorbed at the time in a grief dangerously close to martyrdom, she had at first supposed that no man could ever mean nearly as much to her as the forever absent James Davenant. But in that, as in much else, she was wrong. It was 7 years since the newly married Trenchards had moved into the Limes at St John's Wood townhouse, acquired for them by William's father, co-founder of the Trenchard and Levis retailing chain. They had seemed, in doing so, to absorb into their lives the restraint of the pollarded trees lining Avenue Road and the vicissitude implicitly bricked and wainscoted within their stolid household. They must each have thought then that the uncertainties of youth were gone for good and all, but in that, as in much else, they were wrong. It was 4 years since the birth of his daughter. Patience seemed to confirm that William's greater commitment of late to the business of Trenchard and Levis was no transitory phenomenon. His father began to believe that even if William could never rival the energy and acumen of his brother Ernest, he was at least safe from making of his life anything that was less than respectable. But in that, as in much else, he was wrong. It was just over a year since Constance, making her way one afternoon towards Regent's Park, where she was intended to surprise Patience and her nanny during their customary sojourn by the boating lake, had seemed to recognise, amongst a smattering of spectators bustling away from Lord's cricket ground, a sombre middle-aged man whose suit was too heavy for the warmth of the day. Later, entering the park by Hanover Gate, she had remembered who he was. Richard Davenant, the older member of the family she had so nearly married into. She had thought then, and smiled to herself as she did so, how odd it was that she would have known any more of the affairs of the Davenant family, in which she had once been so closely involved. But in that, as in much else, she was wrong. It was only 2 days since William Trenchard, proceeding in the opposite direction across the park of the dusty, mist-tinged close of an Indian summer's day, had turned at the sound of laughter from a tree hung back that ran down to the lake, and had seen, reclining on the sun-stippled grass, a startlingly beautiful young woman in a pink dress, talking amused issue with her male admirer, who was crouched at her feet, waving his bowler hat in a demonstration of a trivial point. The gesture had struck Trenchard as ludicrous, and he had smiled, then grown suddenly sombre. From all the daring beauty and unexpected drama he had fleetingly perceived in the girl's face, he felt excluded by age and dress and station. It was, of course, merely the sensation of a moment. He was not dissatisfied with his life, did not crave change or any disruption to the pattern of his existence. He was 34 years old, complacent, yes, but unworthy, never. He had made his way home reflecting, a touch wearily, that the pleasures of his particular world possessed at least the warmth of utter security. But in that, as in much else, he was wrong. Interesting setup. So I don't remember very much about the book, but interesting they're setting things up. There's a nice life for these people. Maybe there isn't. She thinks she's no longer involved with her or knew lots about her fiance's family, but she wasn't. That's quite a nice way of setting things up, actually, a little bit of foreshadowing. So yes, interesting writing, quite a mouthful, quite wordy. Sorry for a little bit of tongue twisting there, but I do try to read these straight off sight read without kind of having to cut anything unless it goes completely belly up. But there we go. Robert Goddard's Painting the Darkness is today's 2 pages. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed it, give it a like, give it a little share, and you subscribe if you wish to by clicking the button that's floating around on the screen somewhere around here. But as always, stay well, stay safe, and I'll speak to you next time. Bye-bye for now.